you see a couple of names on this first slide. So the first, I will not mention them all, but the first row are the PhD students that are involved in this in the site that I will present. And then, without any doubt, we cannot run this out without a good group of technical staff, and that is the group in the middle, which is mainly headed by Congolese technicians. There is also one Congolese PhD student, Emmanuel. And then the last line are postdocs and professors involved, including myself. And before I continue, I would like to acknowledge also our local partner, which is INERA, is Institut National pour l'Étude et la Recherche Agronomique in DR Congo, and you see their logo here below, and that's on their research site where the flux tower has been set up. So just as a small introduction where we are, so we are in Central Africa, more specifically in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and our site is located in Yangambi, which is like 100 kilometers downstream on the Congo River, downstream of Kisangani, which is like the fourth city in the DRC. Moving to the right, so our site is actually also a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. Yeah, you see here the city of Kisangani, you see here the Yangambi area, and then you have here where I'm moving around now, the Biosphere Reserve. But you see also, which I would like to highlight, a couple of red dots here, which are obviously human pressure and indicating ongoing deforestation, mainly along the main axis and the roads that are present there. Just on those two pictures, it's well, at least from a Belgian perspective, it's an historical site because this research site has been developed in the 1930s, obviously still during the colonial period of the country. But this, you see here the main building, and you see here the old restaurant of the research site. Okay, moving to the science now, and a little bit of introductory data. Yeah, I think I always would like to do this. And this is a study you probably most all know. This is based on plot inventories, which is showing the net carbon sink in the Amazon in brown here over the last 20 to 30 years, and then similarly for the Congo Basin. Yeah, and then you clearly see that this net carbon sink is divergent with a declining trend for the Amazon. I stress based on forest inventory plots, while this is not the case for the African Congo Basin forests, which have currently a sink of about 0.6 tons of carbon per hectare and per year. And then on the right-hand side is another study we have been involved in, I would like to mention. So this is a prediction of carbon stock changes relative to values in the 1980s for a scenario of a global temperature increase of 2 degrees Celsius. And then what you see for all tropical forests, yeah, this is coloring in various degrees of red, indicating a relative decline of the carbon stocks. And then you see that this decline is for the Congo Basin at least predicted to be lower than, for instance, for the Amazon Basin. Obviously, this is a modeling study, and then I come with a but, and this is another study, yeah. And I just would like to focus on the figure here on the bottom right, where the blue line you see here on top is the same line as this line here above. So this is net carbon sinks based on 1 hectare inventory plots, yeah. And then a couple of Earth system models have been run from the CMIP6 program, and then so it's a couple of models, and then the black line is the mean of all these models. And what you clearly see is that these models are not capable to reproduce what the plot inventories give as data. So, well, each of the approaches, the plot inventories and the models have their limitations, that is clear, but I think we can conclude from this that we have to be very careful with what models predict for the Congo Basin, for the simple reason, according to me, that they are not well enough parameterized and calibrated, and that is because of a lack of data that come out from the Congo Basin. Well, the Congo Basin is, without going into details, I will give a couple of details later, is obviously a tropical forest, but is in terms of structure and species diversity and environmental impact quite different from the Congo Basin. So to mention a couple of reasons that could hint to this, why these models are not optimal yet for the Congo Basin. And this is a very recent study, yeah, that predicts an increasing land carbon sink, yeah. Again, without going into the details that you see, if you consider climate forcings alone, values are red, meaning a declining land carbon sink, yeah. Obviously, when you have the CO2 forcing, so the CO2 fertilization effect, you have positive values, so a net carbon sink, and then on the bottom, you see the combined climate and CO2 forcing, yeah. Again, these are obviously modeling approaches, and I have no problems at all with modelings, but I would like to reiterate for the Congo Basin that most of these models do not seem to reproduce measured data on the field. And for that, I would like also to quote a sentence from that same study, and I will read it for you because I fully agree with it. Yeah, a new generation of globally distributed field experiments is needed to improve understanding of the future land carbon sink. I think this is true, and this is especially true for the Congo Basin, which is underrepresented in terms of this type of research. Yeah. This very quickly. If we want to look into the future and predict the future carbon sink of the Congo Basin, yeah, what is then the safe climate operating space for Congo Basin forests? Yeah, and you see here two figures where mean temperature is plotted against mean precipitation. Yeah, and then the forests we work in the Congo Basin are situated here, with 25 degrees Celsius as average temperature, a little bit less than 2,000 millimeters of precipitation. And they are predicted, yeah, using the latest climate models to become hotter. Yeah. And I'll come back to that later. What could be a consequence of a hotter forest in terms of carbon sinks? Yeah. Now, this is then a plot about mean annual precipitation versus water deficit, yeah, and then it is predicted, looking at the arrows, yeah, that these forests are predicted to become wetter, yeah, which is a positive sign for the forests we work in, because they are relatively dry with 1,800 millimeters of precipitation. If you compare that, for instance, to the Amazon, these forests where we work in the Congo Basin are relatively dry. But then getting wetter, yes, that is one thing, but there is also a recent study of which I mentioned the title here, yeah, that tropical deforestation is obviously, if that happens to a large extent, can reduce precipitations. So this can then counteract this effect of forests that are predicted to get wetter. And then specifically for the Congo Basin, I would like to mention another pressure, and these are data that we collected ourselves. Specifically, Marijn Bouters did that, yeah. And this is atmospheric nitrogen and phosphorus deposition, yeah? Obviously, nitrogen and phosphorus are key nutrients for plant growth. And this is what you see here. So we have huge nitrogen deposition on tropical forests in the Congo Basin in the order of 35 to 50 kilograms of N per hectare per year. Yeah, this has been measured. This is what has been expected. So that is much higher than what models would predict. And similarly for phosphorus deposition, yeah, we have 3.5 kilograms of phosphorus per hectare per year. Yeah, and the reason for that is biomass burning. Yeah, not necessarily biomass burning of the intact forest itself, but specifically biomass burning due to slash and burn agriculture in the areas north and south of the forest. And you see here, depending on the season, the aerosol concentration mapped with respect to the red dot where our flux tower site is. And it is this biomass burning that is a driver for elevated nutrient input, necessarily, in this case, nitrogen and phosphorus. And then just looking to the importance of these two nutrients in terms of modeling terrestrial carbon storage, yeah, I would like to present briefly this data. So this is changes in terrestrial carbon storage according to what was used as the baseline, the RCP 8.5 scenario, yeah, and then you see that areas which are blue, they are a net sink of carbon. Other areas which are brown, they become so the carbon uptake is decreasing. But then you see if you add nitrogen and phosphorus into these models, that the picture is changing completely. You hardly see any blue color anymore in those models using nitrogen inputs and models using nitrogen and phosphorus inputs. So without going into detail again, since we have these huge nitrogen and phosphorus inputs in these models, yeah, this is also something that has to be considered in future models of predicting the land carbon sink in the Congo Basin. Okay, so this as an introduction, yeah. So I hope I could kind of convince you that the location of this flux tower in the Congo Basin is crucially important for several reasons. Yeah, there is a lack of these flux towers in the Congo Basin if you compare them with flux towers that are operating in the Amazon basin and flux towers that are operating in the Amazon. Yeah, I just would like to mention that there is, since a couple of months, I should say, a new tower also in Ghana. Yeah, so there has been one a couple of years ago which is not working anymore, hence the red line here, but there is a new one run by colleagues from the Czech Republic. And this is just to show you where the Congoflux tower is located in terms of forest types that you can find in the Congo Basin. Yeah? So excluding the swamp forests, this study of 2021 indicated 10 different forest types, which has been derived based on easily available data from logging companies. And this is wood density, the maximum diameter, and the degree of deciduousness. Yeah, and then you see 10 different forest types, which could be regrouped in three clusters. So, and the flux tower is here in one of these three main clusters, considering these forest types based on this study. Okay, I'm not going to read this. This is an old statement of Yadvinder Mali, just saying what me and my team are advocating all the time, so that The Congo Basin is poorly represented in global studies with respect to whatever, ecological study, biogeochemical cycles, climate, response to climate change, drought and temperature sensitivity, etc., etc., etc. So we decided to build this tower. And this is a short video while I talk. That was during the construction phase. So this was an amazing piece of work of our Congolese friends that built this tower. So it has been constructed in France. It's actually an exact copy of the Flux Tower in French Guiana. So we could retrieve the old plans. The same company built exactly the same tower as the one that is operating in French Guiana, and then it has been transported from Europe to Yangambi, and then the local Congolese company, they did the construction, yeah, handmade. I would like to see. So this was in actually in full COVID period, yeah. So this was in August, September 2020. What you see over here. Okay, yeah, this I obviously do not have to explain to you. So this is just a picture of the Flux Tower. So we obviously measure net ecosystem exchange, and obviously, but this is, and I'll come back to that, is not straightforward for tropical forests. We would like to do, or we not would like to do, but also doing the partitioning in GPP and ecosystem respiration. And what we added also to the site, but which is not yet operational, is a so-called Flume that you see here on the bottom, yeah, where for a sub-catchment of the footprint where the tower is located in, we also can measure carbon via runoff, dissolved inorganic and organic carbon. It's obviously a minor flux, but we had the opportunity to install this system over there. So we will in the near future also collecting data from that, except to the adequate variance measurements. So this is to be a little bit more practical how it looks like. So we have at an open spot which is about 2 kilometers away from the forest, a solar park with 80 solar panels where we generate the power, the electricity that is needed. So we have an about 2.5 kilometer cable underground going from the solar park to the Flux Tower site. And that's what you see here on the small map. So here is where you see the solar park. And then this is about 2.5 kilometer where is the Flux Tower. Yeah. And then just to indicate to you that we do not only the eddy covariance measurements, but it is really an integrated carbon observatory. We have also, and these are these orange dots, yeah, we have 4 1 hectare plots. 2 of them already have been monitored since 2012, and they are recensed every 2 to 3 years. And 2 of these 4 plots are also fully equipped as so-called gem plots, where we do respiration measurements, not only soil respiration, but also stem respiration. And we have productivity of canopy productivity, so litter fall, fine root productivity, and obviously wood productivity. And then finally, which is mentioned here on the bottom, there is also a forest geoplot, which has been installed with the help of my colleague Wannes de Bo, and he is also running that forest geoplot. This, just to mention a few things, is a cosmic ray neutron sonde that we installed in May of this year, and this allows us to measure soil moisture content integrated over the footprint of the Flux Tower. And this soil moisture content will be, if we want to use the new method for flux partitioning, which is based on neural networks, will be important for us to improve partitioning of net ecosystem, NEE into GPP and ecosystem respiration. So in sum up what we have over there, so what I forgot to say maybe is that this tower is also an associated ecosystem station to the ICOS network, yeah, so the integrated carbon observatory system of within Europe. And so we started measuring in October 2020 with some technical problems in the beginning. So we had to replace our power cable, to give one example. But nevertheless, we received so early this year, we received our ICOS label, which you see here, the wooden plate that they kindly sent to us. So just a couple of technical details very quickly before I show you some initial data. So we produce at the tower 3000 watts of electricity. So we have EC instrumentation at a height of about 57 meters. And obviously we also have meteorological data that we collect, but we also have, and that's one of the reasons why we selected these sites, we also have historical meteorological data going back to the 1930s, and I will come back on that with some data in a few slides. So we also have a profile installed along the tower, during which we measure CO2, relative humidity, and temperature. These profile measurements are crucially important to have an idea on the CO2 storage, and which is then obviously important for the flux partitioning. Also, I will show some data on that. We measure ozone concentration, so atmospheric ozone concentrations. Soon we will add black carbon. The reason is obvious. If I reflect back to the impact of biomass burning on that ecosystem, so we will measure also black carbon soon. And we have been measuring in the past nitrogen and phosphorus deposition, of which I showed you the data. So in these gem plots, we also have subflow meters on a couple of keystone tree species of the sites. We have dendrometers, and we do leaf measurements of photosynthetic activity and intrinsic water use efficiency using the carbon-13 approach. I mentioned already we have the gem plots and the forest geoplot. I mentioned already we have the Flume to measure carbon runoff. I mentioned already the cosmic ray neutron sensor. And then recently within a new project, we are having more logistical support to build a basic field lab for additional analysis. We will have a speedboat that will help us to access the site. We will have a 4x4 and motorbikes, etc., to increase logistics to reach the site. So this is one slide in which I would just like to highlight our challenges. Yeah, we have to be careful with spectral corrections, as you would all know, because we are working in a site with a very high relative humidity, and this is just from January 2022 to January 2023, the relative humidity, which is most of the cases, well, close to saturation. Yeah, we have nighttime CO2 storage because of the atmospheric stability, not a surprise, and that is what you see here. Yeah, so this is just an average day. Yeah, where you see the CO2 flux, and you see clearly this, yeah, before the day starts, before the lights come in, this peak, yeah, which is the indication of the CO2 storage buildup during the night. And then you have the photosynthesis kicking in during the day, and then you move again towards the night. So this nighttime CO2 storage is something we have to take care of. Hence, we have these profile measurements, which also had some technical issues, but which are now, since more than a year, solved. Yeah. flux partitioning, the classical methods like the nighttime or whatever method, they do not work, and we are working on that, and we will use a recently published approach, of which I forgot the reference now, using neural networks. Hence, the soil moisture measurements are important. And then finally, well, we have to live with data gaps, yeah, due to the harsh conditions. And the harsh conditions is lightning, yeah. And you see here a map, yeah, of the lightning flash frequency per year and per square kilometer. And well, our site is here in this black hole, I would like to say here, yeah, where you have like between 50 and 70 lightning flashes per square kilometer per year. And we have, yeah, severe protection of our flux tower against lightning flashes, but once in a while, well, it hits, and yeah, once in a while there are some small damages, no major damages, but electronics, although we have, according to the specialists, the best protection we can have, there are some issues. We had power issues in the past, which are solved now. Yeah, we use the EDI Pro, flagging our data 0, 1, and 2. U-star filtering is obviously an important parameter, yeah, and we are using that. And just to give you an idea, so this is an example of August 2022, yeah, where 40% of our data had a flag 2, yeah, and then another 40% gets flagged by U-star filtering, yeah. So if we move from the complete data set on the left, the flag 2 data set, and then excluding the low wind speed or the low wind velocity data, yeah, we have this data that are left. So there is a huge part of the data that, because of the local conditions, we can simply not use because they are not reliable. Well, I mentioned that a reason why we selected this site is the availability of historic climate data, which is, I think, quite unique. And the picture you see here is the climate station in Yangambi, which is still working and collecting data using analog equipment. Yeah, and just what I would like to show is one indication of how climate is changing in the area. So these are the data starting in 1960 until 2022. And what I show here is the number of days that the maximum temperature was above 32 degrees Celsius. This is obviously linked to photosynthetic activity for the period 1960 to 2020. And then you see that in the 1960s, about 25 days per year, the maximum temperature was exceeding 32 degrees Celsius. Now, it's about, not completely, but almost 100 days per year, the maximum temperature is exceeding 32 degrees Celsius. So if you have this slope, is 1 day per year that is added if you want. So, but this, I think, is a clear indication of climate change. Yeah? So the average temperature has been, we also have these data, it has been increasing with 1 degree Celsius, yeah? But I think this is much more an indicator that of extremes that are changing. And this is a picture I took last March. Yeah, so this is on the Congo River, and you see this is not fog. This is aerosols. Yeah, because of biomass burning at the end of the dry season in March last year. Yeah? I mentioned already to you that is a driver for high nitrogen and phosphorus depositions. Yeah. But it's also a driver for high tropospheric ozone concentrations. Yeah? And since early 2020, we are measuring these ozone concentrations, which I express here in micrograms per cubic meter. Yeah? And you see the data here. Yeah? And the red line, just for a reference, yeah, is the average concentration in Flanders, where ozone concentrations are supposed to be high because of a high density of traffic and industrial activities. But you see here that also for this supposed to be pristine area, we have also quite high tropospheric ozone concentrations, again due to this biomass burning. And obviously, ozone has when it enters the stomata, it has an impact on the photosynthetic activity. Yeah? And this is a study that is, again, modeling the impact of tropospheric ozone on reduced biomass production. Yeah? And that is expressed in percent here, yeah, for various areas around the world. And you see this red area here in the Congo Basin, where you see the huge or the highest reduction in biomass production, with the order of 4 to 5% due to elevated tropospheric ozone concentration. So this is also something we are working on, measuring, and with a PhD student who is also doing some modeling work on that. To further go into detail what we have installed in the footprint of the Flux Tower. So since more than a year now, we have automatic soil chambers that you see here on the picture right, that open and close automatically in cycles of 15 minutes. So they are 15 minutes close, then they open and move to the next one. And so we continue for 9 chambers. So we are continuously measuring CO2, N2O, and methane from the soil using 2 LICAR lasers that are connected to the systems. And you see the boxes of the lasers here, one for N2O and then one for CO2 and methane together. And these are the data. Yeah. Again, so we have the continuous data of methane. Red is the soil moisture. Yeah. You see variation. We see sometimes most of the time we see methane uptake, which is as expected, but we see often some high fluxes, some periodically high fluxes. Not fully clear where that comes from. Likely this is due to accidental termite activity, but again, it is not 100% understood why we have these methane fluxes. So 150 kilogram of expressed in CO2 equivalents, yeah, methane oxidation. Then the respiration that we measure from these chambers is 56,000 kilogram of CO2 per hectare and per year. And then nitrous oxide, we also measure that, which is quite high. So we arrive at 2,000 kilograms of CO2 equivalent that is emitted as nitrous oxide, just to give you an idea. So what we also then installed in these gem plots recently, since March of last year, are stem chambers, and you see that over here, yeah, which are also connected to 2 other laser systems to measure the CO2 and methane flux from the stems. We do that both from dead wood, as you can see over here, as from living trees. And then we also have what you see on the picture left here, and this is Emmanuel Bolonza, one of the Congolese PhD students. So we're also measuring respiration from soil cores, ingrowth cores that are blocking, on the one hand, roots and mycorrhiza, and then on the other hand, roots alone, and then roots alone. Well, the system is we have no mycorrhiza and no roots. We have mycorrhiza alone, and then we have everything, roots and mycorrhiza, due to the different mesh sizes that have been used in the walls of these cores that you see over here. And this is something that I would like to share also. This is the leaf level measurements that we are doing. And this, what I show here is for different important species, heliophilic or ombrophilic species or lianas, yeah. This is the temperature response of the photosynthesis, yeah. So this has been measured in the canopy, yeah, with tree climbers at the sun exposed leaves, yeah. And you see here this temperature response, yeah, which all has a maximum around 32, 32, 30, 30, 32, etc. Yeah. So, and I would like to remind you to this number of days per year that the maximum temperature was above 32 degrees Celsius. This increased from about 25 to 100 days per year. So I think we can clearly expect, but this is of course the topic of research, an impact of increasing extreme temperatures on photosynthetic capacity. And for that reason, we are also doing a leaf warming experiment that will be accessed actually. Well, the leaf warming has been set up in March of last year, yeah, with as you can see here, a heated leaf and a reference non-heated leaf, yeah. So this leaf heating has been ongoing since March of this year, and the acclimation, yes or no, of increased temperatures will be assessed now during the following campaign in August. Yeah, this is another thing that we with an infrared camera, we also measure leaf temperature in situ at the flux tower site. Yeah, and last year in 2023, so about 900 hours, yeah, the temperature was above 32 degrees Celsius of canopy leaves, and this is about 20% of the daytime. So again, indicating that these extreme temperatures are an issue in the site where we are working. Okay, then I come to my conclusions. And well, the conclusions are the three pillars of the foundations of the flux tower when we start building it in 2020. Yeah. So opportunities. Yeah. So this is, I think, allow me to say, a unique site to quantify Congo Basin forest carbon sinks, which will help us not only getting nice data of this particular site and forest, but also will help us to improve land surface models, which I hope I made clear in the beginning, are suffering from a lack of parameterization when the Congo Basin forests are concerned. We hope, and we are going beyond being a flux tower site, and we hope to become a super site, between quotes, with all the additional equipment that we have been installed. Yeah. And we are particularly interested to the initiative of the WMO to develop a global greenhouse gas watch. Yeah. And well, especially in the Congo Basin, carbon credits is a big issue, especially fair carbon credits. And we hope with our expertise to contribute also to this, I would like to call it, struggle for carbon credits, but that's obviously a completely different story. So we have also challenges. Yeah. The socio-political context to work in is not always easy. We have to deal with that, and I think we may not hide that. That is something that is giving headaches once in a while. The logistics are complex but doable. So that is we rely, and we have an excellent, and I would like to stress that, an excellent local technical team, and without them, this site would not be functioning as it is at the moment. So this is absolutely important. Sustainability with the aim to have long-term data, and this obviously depends on financial resources, which we have now until the end of 2027. Yeah, so this is also a constant struggle to have sufficient funding to keep everything going. So we are now safe until the end of 2027, but obviously we would like to run this site much longer than then, with the aim to obtain long-term data. And then finally, I would like to say something on collaboration. Yeah. People live around the site where we work, yeah, and then the question we always get is, so what is this site bringing to us, yeah? What improved livelihoods, yeah? This is a difficult thing because we are not a development or an agricultural project, yeah? So this is, well, this is requiring a lot of sensitizing activities to explain to the local population what are or could be the indirect benefits, because there are, to be honest, not so much direct benefits. Yeah, we do capacity building, yeah, at various levels. I mentioned already there are now 2 Congolese PhDs in the team. Our technical team is, besides 2 persons, all Congolese, yeah, and then complementarity is an important word, yeah. I work in Africa since 2000, so almost 25 years, yeah. But even that, it is impossible for me to understand, although I work in Yangambi since 2010, to understand the local context. Yeah? On the other hand, we bring scientific and technological knowledge, yeah, and it is this match between a local team that much better, and I would like to say much better because they also understand the technical issues, obviously, but much better understand the local context compared to the scientific and technological know-how that we bring in. And it is this match and this complementarity that is really very, very fruitful to have smooth and nice collaboration. And then I would like to end with a couple of pictures indicating the logistics, bringing all the equipment and the flux tower with containers. The first pillar that we had, the open spot that we found in the forest to build the flux tower, the local team building the foundations, baptizing the tower for the sake of the local communities. This is a Christian baptization, but we also had a traditional ceremony. And then to stop, so this is the technical team, yeah, with José, Héritier, Lodewijk, David, and Fabrice, which are unmissable to do the science with this infrastructure. So just to end with this slide, so you have all my information here and links to a couple of websites. I think this presentation has been recorded, so you can check this slide later on if you would like to contact me. So I will stop sharing my screen and leave it here. I hope I did not take too much of my time, but anyway, I'm at the end.
Okay, thank you very much, Pascal, for that presentation. It's a very comprehensive presentation about the work that you're doing in the Congo region. And there's a question which I was also going to ask. Do you have any lessons learned and tips to share about the setup and installation of the Congo Basin sites that might be helpful for young scientists that are involved in or thinking of setting up a new site? So,
yeah. Okay, that's well. Look, you have to go slowly. That would be my. So specifically in the DR Congo, I am working since 2003. Yeah, on mainly agricultural projects, yeah, but it was always my vision to start working in forests. And in 2010, we started with installing just a couple of, like 12, I think, 1 hectare forest plots, yeah. And gradually we have been building our network until only in 2018 we started with the work that I presented today, yeah. And so that's going gradual, and at the same time, so and I would like to stress that. So and I'll just give the example what is the consequence. So we heavily focused on local capacity building, yeah. So in 2010, with these 12 1 hectare plots, yeah, we started with a couple of local master students, yeah. And so all of them are still working with us. So one, Isaac Makelele, he recently in October last year finished his PhD working on forest plots for us, yeah. 2 others are now starting their PhD at Ghent and KIT in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, and another one at Louvain, yeah. And then another one is now our liaison officer, yeah. So he is the go-between between the Belgian team and the Congolese team. And then the last one is Fabrice, who is now the technician of the Flux Tower, yeah. And now with the activities on the Flux Tower, we bring in new master students and new Congolese PhD students, yeah. So this is gradually build up your network and your expertise and include local capacity building with all the activities that you do.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions from anyone? And there's a question about sharing the reference publications to flux partitioning and neural networks.
Yeah, I have to look it up myself. The reference was not in there. It's a publication of yeah, quite recently, 1 or 2 years ago. But I have to look it up myself. I don't know the authors on the top of my head, but I have to look it up myself.
Okay. Yes. Any more questions from anyone about the work that Pascal has just presented to us?
Can I ask about the soil moisture sensors?
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about how they work, or like how are they like spread all over the? Because I think you mentioned that they describe well the footprint of the tower. So I was curious how this is done. Like, did you have to spread a lot of different sensors, or?
No. That is the nice thing about it. It's actually 4 sensors on the picture that I showed to you, yeah. And the principle is it is based on measuring it's measuring neutrons, well, coming from cosmic rays, yeah. And neutrons are so the speed of these neutrons is heavily attenuated by hydrogen, and obviously there is a lot of hydrogen in water, but also in the biomass, yeah. So you have to account for the biomass that is in there, yeah. But it is integrating over an area with a radius of about 300 meters, the attenuation of the speed of the cosmic neutrons, yeah. And this attenuation is a measure for the hydrogen content in your system. And if you know the biomass and the soil carbon content, then you can correct for that. And this correction is actually done by an in situ calibration of measuring the soil moisture content, linking this to the attenuation of the cosmic ray neutrons that are measured, which is then a measure for the soil moisture content. That is, in a nutshell, the principle.
Pascal, is
Thank
the
you.
data from your site available or accessible to the public, or do you?
Yes, they go. So since we are an associated tower to the ICOS network, they go into the carbon portal once per year. Every year in October, November, we submit them to ICOS. Then they go through their quality control, quality assurance system, and then you get the label yes or no, and then they are uploaded somewhere in February. And we have now 1 year of data that are available in the carbon portal of ICOS.
Okay, thank you. If anybody else has a question, you can unmute and ask the question, or you can just type them in the chat, and I will just read them out to Pascal to answer.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation. I would like to know, you said that the flux partitioning method does not work. Can you say a little bit why? And does it mean that the relationship between soil respiration and driver, like soil temperature, cannot be used in that site?
Yes.
Because we have the same issue here in Benin. So I don't know if we can.
And that's what we see now. If we use the classical methods and the relation between, as you say, respiration and temperature, we see that it does not work. But another important reason is that we have this clear and important CO2 storage during the night, yeah, and this is an important aspect we have to take into consideration. And this is well, actually this is, and that's the only thing I can say about it, because it's just a PhD student that started a year ago, working at the processing, first of all, the net ecosystem exchange data. And she is now just starting with going to well, she used the traditional methods, and she is now moving into this neural network approach to have the to improve the flux partitioning approach.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So there's another question. Could you please explain what you meant by removing the FLUG2 data, and what conditions or problems does this indicate?
So this you have to apologize me. Yeah, I'm just a professor that is explaining. Here is the PhD student, which is actually in the plane at the moment, flying to Congo, that know all these technical details much better. But this FLUG2 is as far as I understand it, a quality control that is embedded in this eddy pro system.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that we still have the Slack channels open. We will continue these discussions for over the next few days up to Friday. We'll still be discussing issues around EC measurements and so on. And so I've just shared a link to the Slack channel, and I encourage everybody to join in and keep the conversation going. If anybody else has a question, please, can you ask now before we bring the session to an end? Okay, it seems we don't have any more questions. So I want to thank you very much, Pascal, for your talk. It's been very, very interesting. And just to say that I've been involved, myself and Caleb, who is co-hosting, have been involved in the Ghana site, installing the Ghana site. So we'll be in touch shortly about possible collaborations. Okay. And thank you very much to everybody who has participated in these workshops over the last 3 days. We are very, very grateful for your time. All the sessions have been recorded, not just for the African region, but for the Asia and also for the Americas. And we'll make all the recordings available to everybody who has participated in these workshops. And we're once again very grateful, and we'll keep in touch with new seminars and workshops that are coming up. The next one is coming up on the 29th of this month, and we will send around emails and reminders for that as well. So thank you very much for your participation. Thank you, Pascal, for presenting, and we will continue the discussions on Slack, and we will be in touch again through email. Thank you very much. See you again soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.